Was matching stocking rate to carrying capacity, and those are two terms that can be a little confusing for people. When we are talking about carrying capacity, we're talking about this stuff right here, the forage, okay? And this is what Mother Nature gives us. When we have a lot of rainfall, we'll have a lot of feed. When we don't get a lot of rainfall, we don't have a lot of feed. This year, or actually the last 3 years, we've had dry springs, and that has dramatically affected the vegetation, or the amount of vegetation that we're growing out here, okay? So we have to really kind of monitor our growth rates on our rangelands to get a better idea of what's going on with the carrying capacity. We have 6 months to grow carrying capacity, and then we have 6 months that we can then ration that out until the next 6 months come on when carrying capacity will start to grow again, because we got a Mediterranean climate. 6 months of rain, 6 months of dry, okay? Then there's stocking rate, and that is, well, how many animals can I put on here to actually eat this carrying capacity? Well, we don't have any control of how much feed we're going to be able to grow because we can't predict what the rainfall is going to be. We can have the control over the stocking rate. Now, they've done a study here at the field station. Mike Connor, the former superintendent, led a study looking at stocking rate on these rangelands. When I first started in 1986, the common stocking rate would be on annual rangeland, which is this kind of stuff right here, 1 animal unit for 10 acres. And when I talk about an animal unit, okay, that's a 1,000-pound cow. So that might be like 5 sheep or 5 goats, but that's kind of the standard type of a thing. And so to graze for 12 months out of the year and not really have to put in any extra hay or anything like that, that animal would need about 10 acres. The problem with that assumption is that's assuming that this is all an open grassland. Now, does this look like an open grassland to you? We have pockets of brush. Look over on that hillside over there. See all the different oak trees and all the different brush that is on there. So we really have a mosaic kind of landscape. If we have a whole bunch of tree cover, all of a sudden that's capturing all the sunlight energy, so there's not as much forage production. So instead of that animal being able to run on 10 acres in a year, it's really going to need about 15 or 16 acres to be able to do that. And so in a foothill type of a situation, and this would be very analogous to what you'd find in Nevada County, it would also be very analogous to the foothill regions over there in Lincoln, and then going up here into Butte County, into that whole Bangor and Rackerby area, all that type of a thing, that would be very, very similar. There are some ways that you can determine carrying capacity. You can take yourself a frame like that, a square foot frame, and then what you can do is you can go through here. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I can take this paper bag right here, and then I can go through, and I can take my clippers like that, and I can go through and I can cut the forage, okay, and then I can put this in the bag like that, and then what I can do is I can take a gram scale like this, then I can weigh this, and whatever that weight is, then I can multiply that by a standard of 96, and that gets me to pounds per acre, okay? So in other words, if I weighed this and there was 30 grams of grass in here, of dried grass, that would be analogous to 3,000 pounds per acre as far as what my carrying capacity is.
You have to weigh the bag first.
You do have to weigh the bag. So that would be, there's two things here. One would be, this would be a net weight, so we already would have the weight of the bag figured in on this. The second thing is, when you first weighed it, okay, that's not an accurate weight because there's water in there. So what we've got to do is we've got to either throw that bag in our windshield of our pickup to just let it dry naturally. Here they have some drying ovens where they can dry that down. You can put it in a microwave oven, but you need to put a little bit of some water in there, because if you don't, you'll blow up or you cause a fire in your microwave. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you're washing it. So that would be one way to assess carrying capacity. Now, do we have the same consistent carrying capacity in this pasture? We don't, do we? We've got varying levels. So that means that we would need to take several of these readings in order to be able to really come out with an average that we can do, type of a thing. So that can get a little bit tedious because a lot of people, one, you're not going to have a gram scale. Two, this is kind of tedious work that's okay if you're a researcher or you've got a research assistant to be able to help you go out and do stuff.
No, you mean graduate students.
If you've got to do this yourself, that gets a little tough, okay? Also, the other thing is, do we have a lot of feed here or a little bit of feed?
Crappy feed.
We'll get to that in a second, but quantity-wise, do we have a lot or a little?
It's a lot.
We have a lot, okay? Where you're standing over there, is that a lot or a little? It's less than here, okay? But now let's talk about utilization. How much utilization will there be on this plant at this time of year? Why is that? And the foxtail has very, very stiff bristles. It also makes me sneeze, okay? And so it has very stiff bristles. Animals won't eat this until you get into July or August when you get the seed shattering. I mean, the seed drops, everything shatters, and now this softens up. So they will eat this, but it's going to be a later feed. So if you're trying to force animals to eat this at this time of year, don't, because they're not going to eat it, okay? So that's just a little tip here. Now, let's talk about assessing that carrying stuff. We'll come over this way, okay? Carrying stuff, you're going to stand right here, okay? All right. Ted, come over here. I want you to walk 10 steps towards where we've got that exposure and swell thing. Yeah, just get straight 10 paces. Walk 10 that way. There you go. Carl, get right here. Walk 10 steps that way towards that H brace there. Pam, I want you to get in line with these two guys down on this corner here. And Justin, you get out of the square for a minute. So let's get you squared up and come out. So we're going to kind of get squared up with him. Probably be about right. So what I've done, this is our corner post right here, okay? And I've had these guys, you walk 10, and you walk 10. I'm not sure we both walk 10 that way.
I did paces, you did steps.
Come back here and do steps, okay?
I did 10 from there.
Come on in and get in line with them then. There we go. All right, now, you're going to have to suspend reality right now because you have to pretend I am this 1,000-pound cow, okay? All right? Now, I'm an old cow, I'm a little thin and all that sort of stuff. But what I want y'all to tell me is, do you think, or actually you four people here, do y'all think that this is enough area to feed me for one day, a 1,000-pound cow?
No.
I should shake it, okay? So you think we need a bigger square? I want y'all to take a step directly back. All right, now, what about in here? Do you think this is big enough?
1,000 pounds? No. Nope.
No? You want to take another step back? We'll take another step back. How about now?
There's nothing in here.
What do you think?
Maybe.
I'm getting a maybe.
I doubt it.
Take another step back. What about now? What do y'all think?
I'm going to guess double this.
Is this going to be enough? What do you think? Maybe. I'm sensing doubt. Let's take one more step back. All right, now what do you think?
Closer.
What do you think? Okay, we're to a maybe? Okay, I want you to count your steps back to him and you to count your steps back to him. You can come over and count. Thanks. you? 18 and 15. How many people know how many square yards are in an acre? Or how many square yards are in an acre? 4,840. Okay? And so what they just gave me was the yards that they had. So, let me go under here. All right, so that was 15 by 18?
Yep.
15 times 18, that's 270. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4,840 and divide that by 270. And that's going to give me 17.9 or 18. And what that is I have 18 cow days per acre on that assessment there, okay? That means I could graze 18 head on here for 1 day, or I could graze 6 head on here for 3 days, or I could graze 9 head on here for 2 days, all right? So this is a way to assess what the carrying capacity is going to be for this one little patch in here. Here you're going to say to yourself, Roger, you've got to be crazy. I don't believe that estimate at all. So what you've got to do is you've got to start to learn to train your eye. So what you could do is you could actually look at this similar kind of feed. You could actually take some electric fencing, fence that off, and then if you had a couple of animals, you could throw them in to an area twice as big and assess how close your estimate was. Or if you looked out in a field that was similar to this kind of vegetation, and you said, well, I think that they could probably stay there for 5 days, you could come back in 5 days and see how close you were. If they hammered it down to where there's nothing there, you know that your estimate was off, that you needed to be bigger. If instead you came out here and it looked like hardly anything had been grazed, then you would know that then I can actually make that square a little bit smaller. And you can actually get your eye calibrated in 2 or 3 days to really be able to assess the carrying capacity. And it gives you a quick way to begin to assess that carrying capacity. All right? Let's come up here for just one more example here, okay? 3 more people. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Give me 3 volunteers. Don't hold back.
Come on. Go ahead, Bruce.
All right. Bruce, come here. Go 10 steps that way. John, you done? Go here. Go 10 steps that way. Debbie, get in line with them, okay? I'm still that 1,000-pound cow. Is this enough to feed me for 1 day?
Listen, can you, on the last exercise, the square we ended up with was quite a bit larger than we needed to feed 1 cow, right?
No, it was what we need. At least that's what we estimated. So let's go through that step one more time, Doug. So thanks for bringing that up. We made an estimate that we needed a 15 by 18 square to feed 1,000-pound cow for 1 day. What I'm saying is when you first do that, you don't know if you're accurate or not. I'm saying you then got to go in there and test that estimate by putting some live animals in there, come back a day later and see is it moderate, is it heavy, or is it light? And then from there, if it was light, you know you need to make that smaller. If it's heavy, you know you need to make that bigger. And after 2 or 3 days of doing that, you'll start to begin to get your eye calibrated type of a thing.
Do you think that was probably reasonable within a factor of a couple?
It probably wasn't too far off. Okay. So now what about here?
Are you thinking hours of so many bites per,
Don't make it complicated. 24 hours later, is it going to be heavy, moderate, or light grazing? That's all I need to know. What do you think? You think it'd be heavy? Think it's too much? Take a step back. 1 step back. Just straight back. There we go. All good. Now, what about this?
I guess it's sure why not.
You okay with that? You okay with that? Count. You're not. 1 more step back, okay? How about now? All right, walk to him and you walk to him, okay? by 15. Okay, so we're a little bit smaller. 13 times 15. That's going to be 195. That's going to be about 25 stock days per acre. Okay, we were about 18. We're about 25. The reason why I walked you over here is to show you, you know, most fields you're going to need to do maybe 3 or 4 of these so that you take into these differences. You see, all of a sudden we had some wild oats up here that we had more feed than what we had down there. That area down there got some grazing, this would ditch type of thing. So you'd have to do maybe 3 or 4 squares to then be able to average that in. What I'm trying to do is just give you a quick and dirty method to be able to assess that carrying capacity visually. If you need to back it up to get more comfortable, you can always clip. But the reality is most of you aren't going to get out here and clip a lot. So that's the reason why I'm telling you that. Once you know that carrying capacity, we can then begin to work backwards to look at and see if our stocking rate is in line with the carrying capacity that we have. We want to adjust the stocking rate to changes in carrying capacity. So if we have a low amount of carrying capacity, we need to reduce numbers. If we have a high amount of carrying capacity, we need to increase numbers. Now that can be hard for some people if they don't have inflexible animals. Let's say you have a breeding herd and you've got to keep that cow because, I mean, she's a great cow and there's a market for her calves and all that sort of stuff. In that type of situation, you may want to intentionally stock for, say, 10% above what the worst year is going to be. And that way, if you did have to reduce numbers, it would be very easy to just do a little heavier culling, maybe some early weaning, maybe don't retain as many replacements to get your stuff in balance. If, however, you have a high stocking rate and they're all inflexible animals, and you're going out here and you're nuking the carrying capacity, it is cumulative. We've had 3 dry springs in a row. So the first year, not a lot, 2007, not a lot of grass grown in the springtime, okay? Which means we have less residual coming onto the fall of 2007. So then we go around, we're hoping that we're going to get rain. The cycle repeats itself, even worse in 2008. There's even less residual in the fall of 2008, so we're hitting things even harder. And so then you're coming around again, and so it's causing you to cause more impaction on the soil, cause more runoff to be occurring, and you have less forage production being grown because you need to leave adequate residual on the ground here in order for there to be germination of the next year's seed crop. We want to be sure we're leaving a cover on here. Like this right here, that's probably about 700 to 800 pounds of forage. This over here, conversely, is more like about 12 or 1,500 pounds of forage. And you're going to have other areas where you might be up 2,000, 2,500 pounds to the acre. But this is probably a little too light of residual, and this would probably be about right for residual for what you would want to leave going into the rainy season.
How many pounds per acre you estimate for 1,000 pound animal?
Well, I mean, if you had at
Using
least...
your square method.
Well, in other words, so it's take half, leave half. So let's say, for example, that I said we had 2,000 pounds per acre that we could utilize. Can we utilize all 2,000 pounds? What did I say is what we wanted to do on our grazing management? Take half, leave half. So how much could we harvest? 1,000. We could harvest 1,000 pounds, okay? Because we want to be concerned with the residual that we're going to leave behind.
What are you estimating one animal that weighs 1,000 pounds you would need per acre? Using that method, take half, leave half, would be sufficient to supply feed for that animal.
Well, in other words, if
how much will it need? What number do you use?
Well, in other words, if we said that we could get 25 stock days per acre, then we're saying that we could run that animal for 25 days on there if it was 1 head, and we could run 2 head there for 12 and a half days. As far as, are you going to be able to predict dry matter consumption? Right. Typically, that you might hear somebody talk about that they'll eat 30 pounds of dry matter, but to actually go out there and predict what a cow is going to eat, if you try and clip what a cow is going to eat, she'll actually consume a higher quality than what you can clip. It's because they're very inexact science. So don't get you're getting too detailed, I guess is what I'm saying, type of thing. Yes?
Roger, would you say something about feeding supplements out on on rangeland?
Well, Ken talked about the importance of that. You know, where are we going to place the supplements? Do I want to place a salt block, or if I'm going to do some off-site watering, do I want to place that right next to a stream? Would that be advisable?
No.
Why not?
Because of the fecal matter when they hang out there by the salt water.
So what's the problem with the fecal matter close to a water source? We'll get more deposition. Isn't it amazing that I can have a cow pipe poop right here, and I take one step, and how much was left behind there? How much was just trapped in there if I have enough plant material right in there?
90%.
It's 90% or not even
99.
upwards of 99%. So we need some sort of buffer from the water course to where the cows are going to be. Now, you might say, well, build fences, okay? In some cases, that may be feasible. In other cases, it just may be next to impossible for a lot of different reasons to be able to do that. So there, what we have to do is we have to do strategic supplementation. So instead, we put the salt block up the hill versus down the hill where it might be closer to that water course. If, say, assuming there was a stream down here, to get them up to there. If we can develop some off-site water, maybe use some solar pumping to pump that water, then we can get the water source farther away from where the stream is. They'll go and get their water there, and they'll tend to avoid that stream. It won't be 100%, but it'll at least reduce that a lot. So when we're talking about supplementation, it's figuring out where do I want to put this. And it may be that in different years I want to place that supplement in a different area, because maybe there's an area of, say, if I had Medusa head or I had star thistle, maybe that's the place that I want to put that supplement, because I want a lot of animal impact to really grind all that vegetation down. So we're going to be moving that around. So we need to really think through on an annual basis where we're going to place all those supplements in order to be a tool for us to help our rangelands and our pastures. Okay.